We are back on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio News Talk, 1180. Our guest by phone, Brian Johnston, the Regional Director for the National Right to Life, but he has another hat that we're going to talk about for the next two segments. He's also the Director of the LifeFest Film Festival, which is going to be going on in Los Angeles next week. Actually, next week? Yeah, it is next week, isn't it?
May 5th. It's a big day.
So talk to us about LifeFest.
Sure. Well, you guys know we have a challenge in California in terms of the culture of California, but something we need to recognize is that California influences the nation and the world because we export culture. And sadly, it's boiled down to be called one city, one town, and that's Hollywood. But there's a whole culture of media that comes out of basically Southern California. And, you know, it's frustrating, but I've decided we have to be involved and change that. Years ago, here's a shameless plug, I got into the film industry everybody comes a different way. I did a documentary on the book I had done, Marty, we've talked in the past, the book on assisted suicide, What's Wrong with Assisted Suicide, Death as a Salesman. And doing that documentary, it got me all over the world. It's helped stop legalizing assisted suicide in South Africa, in Australia. It's the only film like that of its kind in the English language. And it was very gratifying, and I saw the power of film and the reality as we live in a post-literate culture. People don't read books to learn. They actually go to the television set or now the computer. And it's sad, but it is the moving image that impacts people most powerfully. But we've got to be involved in that. And I've gotten to know a lot of people in the industry, and there are actually a lot of pro-life people in the industry. But they're just very, very quiet about it because of the culture of Hollywood. Well, we've decided to do something about that, and that's what LifeFest is about. This is our second year at LifeFest. Last year we had Clint Howard, Ron Howard's brother. Ron is a bit on the other side, but Clint is very pro-life and a traditional value conservative. He was a great guy. There's Ben Stein, and there's many other names that you'll recognize. But our real goal is also to get the people who are behind the scenes, the producers, the writers, the people who make films happen. And that's what's been happening. It's been very gratifying. This year, the nominees for Best Film include October Baby. A lot of folks have talked about that. That's going to be aired. We're going to have one of the producers and some of the stars from October Baby there. The film The Way. If you haven't seen that film, it's a very interesting film. Martin Sheen stars in it, and I'll talk about him a little bit. But it's a very interesting film produced by his son, Emilio Estevez. That's also nominated for Best Film. And Doonby, which some folks have known about, but Doonby with John Schneider is a great pro-life film. It's kind of a wonderful life theme. It's a great film. But there's also 240 films from throughout the world that have been submitted. And that's what we're seeing, is that there's a lot of people out there who see the power of film and want to tell stories that make a difference. And so LifeFest brings these people together, brings the stars. Again, we tend to focus on the stars, but it's really the writers and the producers and the people involved that get these products out there. And that's what we're doing. We're meeting at the LA Convention Center, and then some meetings at Raleigh Studios in Hollywood. But we're encouraging the pro-life industry, pro-life people within the industry, to step up, and it's happening. It's working. And we're also bringing the new generation of filmmakers. There are kids 10 years old right now making films with iPhones, editing them, and they're good films. And so this is a new generation. They're not learning how to read and write in school, but they are learning the power of the moving image. And we can't just ignore that. I do regret it as a reader myself, but I think we have to recognize that there's a generation of filmmakers coming up. Many of them are pro-life. We want to get them involved in telling good pro-life stories and not feeling they have to crank out, if you excuse my French, the crap
and this
that Hollywood has produced. We want to get good stories told, and people like good stories.
Yeah, and this is a good way to do it. Our guest by phone, Brian Johnston, director of the LifeFest Film Festival.
You know, Brian, I'm not sure that... I guess what I ought to do is read your book, because I'm not totally against assisted suicide, especially in today's environment with Obamacare, where all they're going to do is try to give you pain pills, which half the time don't work as well as they should.
Whoa, this is news to me.
Well, it may be news. But what's going to happen under Obamacare? What's the value of life to society?
Well, that's the thing. Well, Clay, I'd love to talk about that at great length, but I think you've really cut to the nub, and that is what's going to happen. That's what's going to be suggested, and that is part and parcel of the ideology of death. And I think we need to be careful not to be seduced by that idea. But that is, in other words, yeah, okay, why don't you just kill yourself because life is not worth living? But the reality is that's a response to an emotion.
Well, I didn't mean that way. I meant as far as your health. You're not able to do anything. You can't take care of yourself. You can't talk. You have to be fed through a tube. Those type of things.
Right. So there's the emotional responses we have if we're in those circumstances. But the fact is that there's many. I've met some of these people. Those people have been in comas, and that the physicians have tried to talk to family members and say, "Well, just take away their food and water." They don't hear anything. Those people have come out of the coma and explained, "No, I heard everything you were saying. I just couldn't respond." And the reality is that we're more than just our bodies. We happen to live inside our body. But if we go around killing, if we take lethal action against someone because of their physical condition. See, if someone's truly dying, they die. It's a verb. Dying is a verb. So if someone's dying, you don't have to kill them because they die. But what assisted suicide is, and what Obamacare then, by rationing, is using the medical process to cause someone to die, is ethically and dramatically different than allowing someone to die a natural death.
Well, I believe this is part of Obamacare.
Yeah. So I think we need to, this is not, I mean, there's a whole program just to discuss the implications of this, because a lot of Americans don't think about death and dying. We don't want to. Nobody really wants to think about that. It's not a pleasant thought. But we do have to weigh out the implications of some of these grave and serious decisions. And legalizing assisted suicide goes against 3,000 years of medical ethics, and there's good reasons for those standards to be there.
Well, you just made it easy for me, though, to decide what to get Clay for Christmas. Maybe a gift certificate to Kevorkian's office might be just a thing for you, Clay, for Christmas next year.
I go back to Obama leaving that baby sitting on the counter to die.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's well. Getting back to LifeFest, real quick, because we only have another segment left. You sent me an email this morning that I thought was pretty nice. There's a special code for our listeners. If they use the code TCB, like in Taking Care of Business, TCB, when ordering online, they will get a 15% discount to all screenings, workshops, award ceremonies, and receptions. Now, this applies to the first 20 people. So, if you want to go to the LifeFest, it's May 5th, 6th. I'm sorry, is it May 5th, 6th, and 7th?
Well, it actually it starts the evening of May 4th.
Oh, 4th, okay.
So it's 4, 5, and 6.
Okay.
But the big day is the 5th, so if you're coming down from Koerner or really anywhere in Southern California, it's LA Convention Center. And again, we have a lot of films being screened, wonderful films you've heard about, like October Baby, like The Way. Mm-hmm. By the way, The Way, let me say something about Martin Sheen.
Let's do this, Brian. Let's talk about The Way when we come back from the break. We'll have another segment to do it, okay?
Sounds really good.
Yeah, great. We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk, 1180.